Looks like I was muted. What was the deal with that? Hello, can you hear me? Yusa muted. Hello. Thankfully James was there as well as Harles in the chat. Hello, hello everybody. It was the best intro that I have ever done, just so we're all on the same page. I was incredibly charismatic. I made awesome puns. It was excellent. Not as excellent as you are. Now, let's see, as we already know from the thumbnail, and some of you may have been expecting this, we are here to discuss my favorite theory in all of Star Wars, or at the very least, when it pertains to the prequels. We're here to discuss Darth Jar Jar, the Sith Lord. So this is a perfect one. James doesn't have to be subjected to all of my madman ramblings. Of course, we're not on StreamYard, so that way I can actually show some evidence here. I've got the clips. I've got my receipts, all right? And that means all of you are going to be on the screen today. You can see chat. You're right there beneath me. So let's have ourselves a good old time. I am going to start with some of the worst points that I have, the least strong points, all right? The weakest link, all right? The chinks in my armor, that's where we're going to start. We've got our boy Jar Jar right here. I do want to shout out a few different creators. I'll put all of the videos I used for sources either in a comment or in the description after this. But the video we'll be using here is Jar Jar totally not being a Sith Lord for 7 minutes and 4 seconds. We will also be using Noggin and Loxton's 9-year-old YouTube video based on a Reddit post that is probably just as long. And there is another more recent channel that I watched a couple of videos, Emp Lemon, and the last one eludes me in this moment, so my apologies, but we will get that out there. So what I have is a laundry list of notes that help me prove this case, and of course we will have our visual medium here. So before we dive into 7 minutes of proof in the pudding, let's talk about some of the other factors that we can talk about. Immediately you'll see Jar Jar here has yellow eyes, which is something that several powerful Sith all have in common. You've seen it with Anakin, of course. You've seen it with Palpatine. Hell, you've even seen it with Grievous. Admittedly, this is my weakest point, all right? Some of you may argue that maybe later I'll bring something else up that you don't like, and you'll say, hey, wait, that was your weakest point. For my money, this is the flimsiest board in the floor, and that's why we're starting with it, because we're going to get much deeper into some real stuff here. But honestly, I ruined it already. I missed my first one. The very first fact that we have is this frog spending multiple days or hours on Tatooine is point number one, that he's got to have some force power, right? Like, how in the hell is this dude, this amphibian, surviving on a desert planet without being able to tap into something beyond himself, without being able to use the force? I mean, dude, I can't go down to Florida without burning within 2 hours. You know, how is this aquatic being able to survive Tatooine. I'm not buying it, gang. So there we go. We're starting to build our very sturdy base. Don't believe me? Just stick around. In Naboo, back to Tatooine we must go, James says. Now, in Naboo, if you remember, there is a point in time when Jar Jar comes back, and the whole city of Naboo, they gasp, and they're like, oh, they're freaking out a little bit. To me, not necessarily the reaction that they would have from just some run-of-the-mill court jester, village idiot type person. Like, that is the sound that you make when Chopper wheels into the room, and you're like, oh no, that's a war criminal right there. Oh my God. Get out the way. He's back. So more subtle clues, I believe. Let me state this case before I get too far down this rabbit hole. I believe that the intention was for George Lucas, in his desire to make the prequels sort of like poetry and that they would rhyme with the OT. I believe that the evidence that we have in episode 1 for Jar Jar being a Sith Lord was intentionally subtle because it was supposed to not only rhyme with Yoda, who, as we will discuss, was an incredibly annoying character when he was first introduced. I mean, even at like 7 or 8 years old, I was like, this guy's kind of a lot, okay? But also, the prequels, if they were going to have to rhyme with the original trilogy, what is the "No, I am your father" moment of the prequels? If they are going to need to sort of be parallel or rhyme, Jar Jar being a Sith Lord kind of fits both of those. If you walk through this with me, so that is essentially the argument that I'm making. That the original plan was for George Lucas to have Jar Jar be the antithesis to Yoda, the simple idiot who looks like a fool when you first see him, who ultimately is the wisest in their little superpower witchcraft voodoo cult, however you want to look at it. So you've got the Alpha Jedi taking on the Omega Sith Lord. And I believe that's what was initially going to happen. Then, of course, the dweebs, we dweebs were too young to explain to a very young internet that it was going to be okay, that there was a great idea behind these prequels, that they just needed to be patient. Now, in Jar Jar's defense, there were a lot of other things people did not like about The Phantom Menace, the pacing, some less than stellar child acting in some people's opinions. That poor kid has been through enough, so we're just going to move past it and talk about how some of the adults also didn't have the greatest lines to deliver, nor did they deliver them in a way that a plank of wood couldn't deliver them. But for the most part, it was Jar Jar. Jar Jar sucked. He was so lucky. He was just annoying. And the belief of this theory is that George Lucas then would pivot in order to save the remainder of the prequel trilogy, because people had rejected his original idea so much. So we will, of course, by the time we're done with it, show you some evidence in the real world that there is some credibility to this idea. But for now, we're going to go back into the movie evidence after I check in with chat. Harl says, I sure hope you have your Gungan dictionary pulled up, because I'm about to drop a lot of words that sound like they might be slurs, but aren't. Okay, good to know. Trigger warning for potential Gungan slang that might hit a little close to home, okay? So you've all been warned. Okay, so now that I've covered some of the original, initial, just low base level things, let's again remind ourselves of some force wielding powers. Okay, we will have not only an adept fighter, somebody who knows at least one form of a martial art, some kind of whether there's several different Jedi stances, right? As we know, lightsaber fighting stances. A lot of this stuff was built upon real ideas, things that either existed in the world, or things that Isaac Asimov wrote, and maybe a little Frank Herbert in there too. But George pulled heavily from uh, many inspirations to get to where we were going. So we've got some sort of fighting technique, right? Most Force users are good fighters, whether it be with the lightsaber or Ezra Space Jesus doesn't even need one. We've also got Force jumping is an ability, right? We've got the power of persuasion. Got the people like me who talk with their hands, although I promise I am not. Actually, that's a lie. I am absolutely trying to Jedi mind trick you. This whole stream is about me convincing you. Yeah, so of course, yes, we got a lot of this. We got a lot of persuasion, some Jedi mind tricks. And keep those in mind, all right? We're going to start seeing some examples of how Jar Jar might fit into all this. Now, unfortunately, I don't have much for the electrocution, some of these other powers. But we're also going to look into some very specific examples of inspirations that George likely pulled from. Asimov will be brought back. Bear with me, folks, as I forgot to plug my computer in. We are back. So let's get into looking at what Jar Jar did in the prequels that I believe was meant to be moments for us to look back on after a big reveal to say, oh, wow, it was here all along. Jar Jar was always meant to be this big reveal character. So the last thing I will say to keep in mind as we go through all of this is an animated character, so it would stand to reason, although George maybe wasn't so tight on the budget as Disney Plus is these days, it would stand to reason that any motion made by an animated character was likely done on purpose, right? Because if you could just save the time and the money and the energy to not have an animated character move, or maybe not even have them be in the scene because they don't really add any value unless you're some kooky egg with a half-baked conspiracy theory. Why, oh why, would we have these animated characters in these scenes? They're not free, they're not cheap, and you have to assume that any animations, any motion done by those characters was done on purpose, was done with intent. So, without further ado, let's get working with some of our evidence. All right. So once again, this is Jar Jar totally not being a Sith Lord for 7 minutes. I mean, that pretty force jumpy. Come on, he jumped up from what is essentially got to be the mud, right? Like he's not even from an elevated spot. He jumps up, does several flips up in the air. I mean, I've never seen anybody who doesn't have the Force make a jump quite like that. And since they moved from this directly to Jedi mind tricks, I want to point out there is another one, which, if time allows, I will try to grab it from the 9-year-old video that really is why a lot of people saw this theory in the first place. But there is another scene where they're fighting against some droids, and you see Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon jump down, and at the start of the frame you have upper follow my hand, okay? My left, your right, upper right, you see Jar Jar jumping down, and then it cuts to a lower action shot where you're, looking behind Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and you can watch the droids' heads move from their right to their left as Jar Jar lands on the opposite side. So now he's back again. Now he's back down here, but the camera has pivoted. Where it was in front of us, it's now behind us. So he has gone across the stage, so to speak, and did that all within, the time it takes to fall off of a balcony. So very graceful. It's almost as if his whole clumsy idiot vibe is just a ruse, and we're going to see more of that. So there are other instances. That's not the only force jump instance. It's just, I believe, the only one that is in this particular video. We do have some other evidence to look at. But let's get into the mind tricks. We're going to see a lot of these, right?
Ooh, miss it. Ouch! Chesko Saboba.
Whoa! Hey, they beat me to it. Did you see it? Whoop! Close your hand. Just a little bit of something. I don't know. Looks like he's calming this guy down. He even blinks as it happens. And now we're going to see a lot of examples of him working his Jedi mind powers on Padme. There are several examples in The Phantom Menace of Jar Jar allegedly using Padme to make his arguments for him. As far as the theory goes, Jar Jar would not be able to use his mind tricks on Qui-Gon. So, for instance, when he doesn't want Anakin to come along, you have Padme say, well, the Queen would not approve. The Queen doesn't need to know. Well, I don't approve. And again, you will see Jar Jar is somehow always in frame and somehow always his lips are moving, even though there are tons of instances of this animated character being in the background without his jaw moving. So, you know, maybe he's just chewing on some gum, but it's not consistent throughout every appearance. So it makes me believe that it was there where we could see it for a reason.
You're thinking people gonna die?
I don't know.
Gungans get pasted too, eh?
I hope not.
Talk about those wooden line deliveries, huh? Jesus criminy. But it was all Jar Jar's fault.
Gungans not dying without a fight. We say warriors. We say got a grand army.
Ooh. We got a grand army, which also, doesn't that feel a little palpy-ish? Like, doesn't that feel a little Army of the Clones? A grand army? I mean, it's Napoleon is what it really is. But that, I don't know. Maybe it's just a coincidence, guys. Maybe I'm a nut. What up, Kang? Welcome to the show. Welcome to my insane conspiracy theory.
That's Mr. Dinks.
Your Highness?
You are doing grand.
Here we go again.
And the Naboo.
It's funny. I do, Harls. Used to thinking it was all according to plan. I do. I think that it was Jar Jar all along. But anytime this guy gets promoted, wouldn't you know it, he's always waving his hands about. And in fact, when he convinces the entire free world to just give their own democracy away, he's up here doing all the stuff with his hands. He's always talking with his hands. What up, Shadow? You are here for it. Darth Jar Jar. We are proving it. We're going down the rabbit hole with visual aids, all right, and a little bit of my own insanity. But we're here to prove it. Darth Jar Jar all along.
Together.
Welcome.
No.
So, we shall make you Bombard General.
General?
And here we go. We're talking about the abilities, all right? What we're about to see is a master of the drunken fist. Okay, these are all going to be moves that make it look like he doesn't know what he's doing, but he is actually, it's that inconsistency with his motions that makes him that much harder to combat. Ask Sean Strickland about that, all right? It's hard to plan for Drakus Duplessis because even Drakus doesn't know what he's about to throw next, okay? You can't plan for something that's that sporadic, and this is where we see, again, just like there are different forms, you know, some of this stuff was based on samurai, but we have different types of lightsabers, we have different fighting styles. To me, it's all within the realm of reason that this guy whose whole plot and plan is to pretend to be an idiot so he can get get an inside track. He bumbles his way into being assistant to the regional senator. He fumbles his way into being a general. As you're about to see, he somehow basically wins this whole battle by himself, despite being a dummy. It's all according to plan, and here we go. So let's look at these this very lucky fight, right? That's all this was, just dumb luck. That's why everybody hated it, because look how stupid this was. Oh, look at that. Oh, okay. Now he's got a droid on his foot, and he's somehow able to smack it on the ground at exactly the right angle to knock out these different droids. He even takes out one of the heavy boys, like just with one shot from this little grunt here. Like, look at how perfect was that timing before the shield could even come up. But oh yeah, he's just a dumb idiot being dumb. What up, Sleek? I want to see Jar Jar do a can. Let's see. Not yet, but the stream could be the push I need to get that sick Darth Jar Jar ink. Let's go. Oh, yeah, oh goddamn, that animation is way more garbage than I remember. Yeah, it doesn't hold up great, does it? And just to show that we're fair and balanced, I feel like this one's a reach, but it's in here. So, you know, yeah, he dodges the laser. But that's okay. Because here we have the very strategic dropping of the ball. Not normally a good thing. Which also, not related, how dumb were the Gungans to not just do that already? Right? Like, those were all EMPs, and you have the high ground, and instead of just strategically rolling some down the hill, you're like, nah, we got a trebuchet for that. It's fine. We'll just do one at a time. It's maybe it was a little easier to be the general of this army than I wanted to think initially. But of course, we see again, just luck of the draw, man. No skill involved. He happens to land right on this tank.
Yeah, take this one.
I mean, come on. Look at that. That's high-level skill. Which we will again see represented in a Clone Wars episode, where we can see just like, goddamn, Jar Jar's, you know, for a klutz, he can really do some stuff that almost nobody else could do. His act of being harmless is disturbing. Gungans had insane tech, like how they building all that stuff under the sea, by the way. Jar Jar and Watto scared me when I was 7. Yeah, Watto. Jar Jar honestly just pissed me off. I wish I had today's perspective when I watched it at first, because I wasn't super into anything other than the pod racing. You know, I was like, oh, that shit's pretty cool. This is how it feels when you drop a metal bowl in a commercial kitchen. Okay, so obligatory Adult Swim. Robot Chicken shout out.
Misa propose
They knew it all
that
along.
the Senate give immediately emergency powers to the Supreme Chancellor.
And how and why would the Intergalactic Senate listen to this idiot if he weren't using his force powers, right? Like, what about, I mean, yeah, he did win a battle. That was pretty cool, right? We just saw that. Okay, so he's a war hero. But is that enough? He won one battle, and that would be enough to just get the entire Senate to go with him when the idea that's being presented is they just shelf democracy. They're like, yeah, no, we're good. We don't. Empire will be good. We'll just make that guy the boss. Now, is it potentially? And it's I have a hard time explaining this one if it's not the Force, because what Padme was just gone. I know that she had a hard time getting people. Like, that was like a former queen that turned herself into a senator for her planet, but Jar Jar's able to convince everybody to do this. His voice makes me low-key violent, irrationally angry. It was overdone. Honestly, in my opinion, it was a little too much. As my good buddy Noah would say, it's too much ketchup on the fries. But they did the same thing with Yoda. Maybe not to quite. This was it taken to another level with its annoyance, but man, the Empire Strikes Back Yoda is a real weirdo. Really annoying to deal with too. So I think it was all intentional. What else does chat say? How did he ever get put in charge at all? That's what I'm thinking, is every time he gets a promotion, he's got a chance to hand wave somebody. So I'm thinking, and part of this theory could be that maybe some of it is even subconscious to him, that he doesn't even necessarily realize how powerful in the Force he is. I'll be honest with you, that part of the theory is something we will talk about later. That it's sort of, how there's like 1,000 different versions of Christianity. I've chosen to pick and choose which parts of this theory I'm going to agree with and which parts I'm going to chip away at. So we'll get into that, but there are several literary homages that it really looks like George pulled from when creating this character. So one of those being, I'll just say it, Bink from Xanth. Was it the Piers Anthony, the Xanth, which looks like Florida when I saw it on a map. I've not read this series, by the way, so this is all coming secondhand from another source. But it's about a character who is banished from... A character named Bink, who is banished from Xanth because they are believed to not have powers, and in order to live there, you have to have powers. And throughout the journey, you find out that much like Domino of Deadpool fame, his power just manifested itself as luck. Again, my whole part to this theory is that it wasn't luck, that this is all part of this guy's ruse, down to the drunken boxing. So to me, it's sort of like you can't have it both ways. Like, he can't be subconsciously super powerful in the dark side and not realize that he's manipulating people. It's either he's the genius mastermind behind all this, or he's just an idiot. I don't like the idea of including that, but I'm just here to present everything that I've found that connects to this theory in one way or another. Bink is a stupid name. Bink was bunk, huh? Leave my boy Yoda out of this. Okay, all right. Touched a nerve there with the Yoda feedback. Yoda won me over time, which was an opportunity Jar Jar was not given.
It was wrong.
Look at that
sorry.
face.
Oh, so yes! Right, Palpy. You some manipulated me. Okay, Papi.
Maybe they were the OGs. Did they do it even before the video essays? Moving objects with the Force. There we go.
Gentlemen and gentlemen, let's try this one.
This is an additional factor that I don't think gets brought up as much in, depending on when these video essays were made, like the popular one I've referenced to several times now, was made before the sequel trilogy had come out. And so their whole fourth act, I think it was probably the sixth act, was about how Jar Jar might be this Snoke guy that everybody's talking about. Wouldn't that have been fun if we had... Tell me you wouldn't have preferred that. Instead of Snoke being another Palpatine clone, if Snoke had actually been Jar Jar, who somehow had managed to stay alive in some hyperbolic time chamber. But let's see. Remember, this guy's a klutz, just the biggest idiot alive. So how would he be able to do what we're about to see?
Whoa. You... Damn it.
Where's
Here we go.
Big 182.
Thank you very much. Misa just sharing my Gungan art with Yusa
And it's important to note for those who haven't watched this episode in a long time that he did all that to distract these folks while I believe, oh man, I can't think of the senator's name. But anyway, it was a stealth mission, so he did that to distract these people. And it was one of those missions that during the Clone Wars looked like it was great for the good guys, but really what it was doing is strengthening the future Empire's army. So even this scene can also be used for 2 points, really, to show, hey, look, maybe he's using the Force to manipulate those things, but also this mission that he's a part of is going to be very valuable for Palpatine later on. So it's interesting to see that even in episodes of the Clone Wars, maybe Filoni knew about these original plans as well and kept some hints in there, because when we get to the very end of this road, we will talk about what Ahmad Best, the actor who played Jar Jar, has to say about all of this stuff, and we'll look into some of the other real-world factors that lead me to believe that at least while they were producing the first movie, that this was the plan that they ultimately had to pivot from, and that's why we get a Count Dooku that has no backstory, that's not mentioned at all in the first book, in the first movie. Kind of feels like he came out of nowhere, and we get a lot of his backstory later on. I believe that's because most of what he does was meant for Jar Jar, and it was ultimately he would just fill that role of Dooku, the guy who thought he was the apprentice, who, wouldn't you know it, was actually just keeping Anakin's seat warm. Because you see that all over. For the rule of two is absolute bullshit. I feel like it's just something that they tricked the Jedi into believing, because you almost never see just two. There's always the apprentice has their own secret apprentice that they're using to plot to kill their boss. I mean, look at Asajj Ventress and Dooku. There's never just two of these guys. What the hell are the, not the Knights of Ren, but the Inquisitors? Like, what? There's so many loopholes these dirty bastards have to get around that rule of two. I am not buying it, all right? I think that Jar Jar became Dooku, which is kind of still a win. And if that's how we got Christopher Lee into Star Wars and got him as Dooku with that dope-ass tilted hilt, I'm okay with it. I'm okay that we got here. It certainly could have been worse. Let's get back to the evidence.
and Misa.
This is nuts. Imagine Jar Jar standing over your bed at 3 a.m.
Look, a Jedi.
Somehow Jar Jar
Jedi?
Jedi? Where's a Jedi?
I do believe they mean you. Kill the Jedi!
Oh, yeah. See, they think he's a Jedi. They can sense the power. What did Sleek say? Decent small things, true brings. Dooku never fully gave himself to the dark side. He also mentions, allegedly. We're going to go back to this. Yeah, imagine this guy with the hood.
A Jedi.
Standing at the corner of your bed.
Jedi?
Jedi? Where's a Jedi?
I do believe they mean you.
Ah!
Kill the Jedi! Don't shoot. We surrender. We surrender.
Ah! Forget surrender! We surrender!
Idiots.
Sir,
Oh, look how he just tripped over like an
over there.
absolute
the Jedi
imbecile.
is escaping.
Not likely.
So we use that to get into the underwater depth. There's some next level stuff, man. He was somehow able to trick this giant caterpillar fish into thinking he was food just in time for that cannon blast to get there.
You so okay, Bogey? You so stay with me. You so my new pal.
Ready?
I'm so glad we got that little voice.
It's the Jedi. It's the Jedi.
Release the Senator.
That Jedi is going to attack.
Shoot him! Shoot them all!
Well, you know, I hate to do this to myself, but in the sake of being fair, he definitely just failed the Jedi mind trick test right there.
Shoot him! Shoot them all!
Senator.
It's
Right?
the Jedi.
Release the Senator.
That Jedi.
Or is that a double bluff? Did he just do a really bad Jedi mind trick so that it wouldn't work? Damn. You know, I spent a lot of time on this, and now this is poking a hole. Damn it. Let's
Jedi is
continue.
going to attack.
Shoot him! Shoot them all!
That's still pretty force wielding, right? To be able to dodge machine guns
That Jedi has summoned a monster!
and pull an Ahsoka to summon a big giant monster. And now we have a giant caterpillar,
I made a very good friend.
as he says, made a very good friend. I tend to agree. And maybe that's why the Jedi mind powers didn't work, because he wasn't actually focused on them. What he was doing with his hands was getting that caterpillar to jump up. He was still controlling the big green bastard. What was that book? There was a book I remember, a little picture book about a caterpillar. Man, can't think of it. Oh well, here he is faking his surrender.
Sir, they're taking Representative Binks hostage. Get ready.
What a dumb outfit.
Oops. Oopsie. Sorry. Sorry.
Just happens to... That's the perfect hijack. Slip. Oops, I fell over. Pulls an Austin Powers. Hits these guys.
Hold it right there.
Kill him! Kill him! He's no representative, he's a plague!
Easy. Oh, that might be true. Oh, what's Chad got to say? Very hungry caterpillar. No way, it was Dune, wasn't it? Very hungry caterpillar was what I was thinking of, but also Dune. You're both correct. You each get a point.
Are you so sure these are the right way?
Yes, but ahead there is only darkness and evil.
Then yes, Jar Jar. This is the correct path.
Oh, another drop in there. Like, it's your correct path, Jar Jar. So hang on. I am going to get that other one pulled up so that we can see some of the other evidence. You just have to bear with me as I have to scrub through those. I didn't get my timestamps ready for everything. I was very close, but I couldn't quite get it. So just bear with me here. We'll get this pulled back up. And before we dive back into all of this, I'm going to check in with chat one more time. Well, not the last time. God damn, Eric. Kyle's even stealing from Dune. That's a good pull. From the context, I can tell who that is. Otherwise, I would not have even recognized the name. So great pull there. we're going to see some of these examples that I've already brought up, and then after we see our final visual examples from the product itself, that's when we'll start talking about Dune and the mule and some other potential inspirations that may also kind of reveal what might have been underway. So let me find the first instance here. Oh, well, first of all, let's look at the drunken wushu boxing. All right. So I'm going to keep this muted, but yeah, check it out. The Star Wars are all Jar Jar's fault. That is Noggin and Loxton or something. It's talking about Drunken Fist. All right, we were right there. If I fast forward, we're gonna miss it. There we go. So now you're gonna see some back-to-backs of this is a master of this discipline putting on a display. I believe it's quoted as being a training video. But look at some of this stuff compared to Jar Jar. He got a kip up like he's Shawn Michaels. Which, I mean, he could just be a wrestling fan. Very specific in how parallel they are. And, of course, we're about to see what we've already talked about, which was how he used the guns in this spot to absolute perfection. Look at that. Couldn't have done it better. But now we've got to get to the force jumping of it all, which was really what I wanted to show you all. And, of course, he starts to talk about all of the inspirations. Finally, here we go. Let me get to it. All right, so this is what I was trying to describe earlier. So we'll see how good I was at describing what the hell was going on. So, okay, we'll cut back to that. But I know that they're about to make another cut. So, okay, you see this? You've got Obi, my guy Qui, and you've got Jar Jar. Again, just so happens it's such a clumsy idiot. Can't even jump off of a bridge right. He's tripping. He's falling. He grabs the ledge is what we see. And then, of course, we got, Obi-Wan doing some cool stuff. But we watch him fall. He grabs this ledge. I don't know why they need to show it to you. You guys, you can just take my word for it. You see it. You see what he's doing. And now, what? All the way on the other side, which we probably know what he did. We saw it when he jumped into the river. He did a little whirly-do spinorama off the top rope, and now he comes down on the other side. Is that just like klutz? He just slipped and fell, and then just with only his upper body just decided to swing over to the other side. Why wouldn't he just drop down and be where Qui-Gon was? And more importantly, again, yes, the CGI sucks, right? Like, yes, it very much feels 25 years old. However, there are still movements being done here that wouldn't need to be done. Like, we're going to be able to see in 48 pixels that these robots all follow Jar Jar with their eyes. So it's something that so easy to miss the first time, but once that reveal would have popped and you would have gone back like it's some kind of detective noir or some other kind of murder mystery, and now you've got the big twist, you want to go back and rewatch it and find all the different hints that were laid out, all the breadcrumbs. I feel like this was a breadcrumb that we would have gotten. And so let's watch it again. This time, just look at the droids from here. Okay, so we've got eyes aiming straight, and you're going to be able to see it to their left, screen right. You see them turn. So you see them follow him essentially in the air as he jumps over. So there's another instance, and I love how they pull this out. Like, who else have we seen do some crazy stuff? Some crazy arm strength, gymnastic stuff. Boom, right there. Only one of the strongest Force users we know. Damn it. And here we are going to get to the final few instances of Force mind control powers. As soon as I can get, here we go. All right, now in this case, I am actually going to turn the volume on so you can hear it, because I think it's a little bit easier for you to hear the clip of the movie as well as watch Jar Jar's face here.
Of the rise of the Empire. Let's look at a few scenes where he's putting words into people's mouths. And remember my previous point that Jar Jar is animated, so all of these subtle little lip movements are all on purpose.
The Queen wishes it. She's curious about the planet. The Queen wishes it. She's curious about the planet.
He also is looking back and forth between the two of them.
The Queen will not approve.
The Queen doesn't need to know.
Well, I don't approve. Well, I don't know.
Boom. And again, like, he's not just an extra sitting there in the back. Like, I'm sure you've all seen Ahmad Best as Jar Jar at this point with that weird Jar Jar helmet. It looks so weird. So it's not like there isn't an actor there and it's all CGI, but it's a lot of work when you could have just blocked him out of the shot. There's a wall there, there's a corner. It's almost as if he is specifically put there so that we as the audience can see them, but it is within reason that Qui-Gon would not see him and therefore doesn't realize, has no inclination that Padme is just being worked like a puppet, a Jar Jar Binks puppet in this case. Which again, they're going to now show a bunch of other instances of him not moving his mouth, of him just walking around, gums aren't flapping, which is again just to point out that that was probably done on purpose. I don't know if there are any other good examples of that. I think he's just going to go over the same ones again. And yeah, again, just bringing up that some plot points that go along with it. Ideally, the next part of this video is talking about how Padme and Anakin were getting along just fine, and then all of a sudden she doesn't want him to go along. It would make sense for Jar Jar. Again, if we're going full on with the theory that Jar Jar has known all along that he's part of the Sith plan, may even be working with Palpatine directly, anybody working with Palpatine would likely know about Plagueis, would likely know about the midichlorians, and would likely know that if Anakin was as powerful and as special as these Jedi think he is, Palpy's going to want that on his team, which really compromises Jar Jar's position, just as we saw with Dooku, right? The whole time Dooku thinks he's a true apprentice. He's really just the muscle for when Anakin's ready to step up and fill that void. So perhaps, if you're going along with me, that Jar Jar is a Sith Lord, perhaps he would have seen Anakin as a threat and would have wanted to stamp that out right away. And again, knowing that he's not able to manipulate a Jedi, he's going to try to manipulate Padme to see if she can't get through to him just by a regular old emotional argument, trying to play to his good guide nature. But let me see what chat has to say, because we've got a not new, but a new for today. What up, Anthony? Good to see you. Says, sorry I missed most of the stream. I'm keeping Star Wars fires burning. Let's go. Just ordered 3 collections from Crash and Burn, Saber for Hire, and Quest of the Jedi. Fuchsia, let's go. So 3 new High Republic collections. Oh, please let us know how those go. James and I have discussed it before. You know, we would like to introduce or include some more of the novels into the show and talk about stuff like that. So if you think they're good, we will certainly look into them. What does Harls have to say? It's the Jar Man controlling all the minds. He'd like to come and meet us, but he can't control Jedi. Oh, that's great. And it's Starman too. You couldn't have picked a better Bowie song for that one, Harls. Thank you. What else we got? Show us the roof scenes. This is the one I was talking about. Perfect. Okay, I'm glad we got to that one, Sleek. Sorry I missed it on chat before. Jar Jar's laying it on way too thick here, like he's taunting the audience. So there is another situation. Here they bring up things like how before they've ever technically met at the end of Phantom Menace, these two are standing next to each other. There's also the moment in the film where all of this is happening. They're going to show Mace Windu talking to Yoda, and this is when he says, always two there are, you know, and which did we get, the master or the apprentice? And then they cut to Palpatine, but it's almost as if George was prepping this for a Saw sequel, because just off screen is Jar Jar, so they can do that whole flashback, but Jar Jar was there all along. But as you can see, it's going to stop because it's revealing what we already know, that Palpatine is, of course, the Dark Lord, but hey, Jar Jar was there too. So again, there's a ton of evidence to all of this, and here's where they will talk about, again, the Yoda parallel. But we'll take this down for a moment and talk about the other story that is potentially an inspiration for Jar Jar Binks. Now, I cannot recall the character's name, but in Isaac Asimov's The Mule, there is a very similar character to the one that we've laid out here in this theory. So there is, throughout the story, a fool, a seeming idiot, who throughout the course of the story will help destroy democracy. It's a telepathic villain who eventually starts a civil war that leads into a new empire, which, again, a lot of parallels there. And we do know that George Lucas pulled from a lot of different sources. We've already made the Dune joke a couple of times, but it's true. And there have been other characters, character names, and just scenes and all kinds of things he was inspired by. Hell, the idea of starting at episode 4 is an homage to Flash Gordon. Almost everything in this story is got some real world correlation, i.e. the why the Empire looked like space Nazis, or different stories, i.e. A sand planet where there's a drug called spice. You know, nothing to see there. Jar Man makes YouTube videos. The story of a lovely lady. Harl says, hadn't read that Asimov and looked it up. Seems pretty cool. Yeah, it's one that I hadn't read, still haven't read, but am only familiar of because of this whole theory. And it's going to be on my read list as well. Let's see. Anthony says, Trials of the Jedi is the last novel in the High Republic Multimedia Initiative. Last story in Phase 3, the final phase. It's written for anyone, Inc., those who've never read okay, so it's not, you don't have to be tapped into the High Republic novels is how I'm interpreting that. Let me know if I misunderstood, but okay, that, I mean, please Please just be good. I would be very excited for that. Okay, so I've got to clear out some of the older notes here. Let me get this out. We've got Padme as the vessel. Not only she tries to convince Qui-Gon not to take Anakin along. Let's see. We've got... Oh, and there's also a moment in the comics which let's see if I can find this. This is from a different video source. Bear with me here. I believe I can find this pretty quickly. But there's an instance in the comics where Jar Jar uses a lightsaber. And once again, it's very conveniently sort of, he looks like he doesn't know what he's doing, but he happens to be a little efficient with it. So we'll get this queued up. This is from Vader's Fortress 2 is the channel. The video is called The Darth Jar Jar Theory Just Got Crazier in 2024. Now, I would say that was just a very clever title, but it didn't really get any crazier. There's not a whole lot extra, but there are a couple of things. And so we're going to bring them here. Is it in the fighting skills section here? We'll give you something to look at other than my face. Let's see. Fighting skills, political power, Clone Wars. Okay. And here it is in the comic. Is there... No, everything from the Clone Wars is what we've already covered. So let's get into the comic here. And you will see, once again, some hints that Jar Jar might know what the hell he is doing. Might have just been a little too early here. But we are going to see that Rex goes out on his own, and Jar Jar disobeys orders, which is just kind of a weird thing on its own. Why would Jar Jar be sneaking out by himself anyway? But Rex gets a hurting put on him, and it's looking like it's going to be game over for the boy when a dark, shadowy figure with 2 yellow eyes steps from behind the corner with a lightsaber. And of course, he's going to be really, really proficient with it. It's the only downside to not having the volume on. It feels a lot longer. It's like I keep waiting to get to the next. These muy, muy bombad. That's. It's wait. So bombad racing just means bad racing. Is that? I wish Nate were here. It's a downside to doing this on OBS. I don't have the StreamYard power to be on Facebook and Twitch at the same time. Nate's going to be pissed when he finds out bombad just means it sucked. No, bombad is good? Wait. But why did he say Tisa muy, muy bombad? So does that just mean like it's very opposite of good? Okay. All right. Or maybe he's so evil, he's just gloating over the dead Jedi. It's like, that's right, General. Suck it. I am the captain now. It's like a really big word for Gungans. Oh, it's good or bad. Got it. Okay. Well, that's... Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Gungan. As if human languages aren't hard enough to learn. So there you go. There's yet another example of him doing some Jedi-esque things, this time in the comics. So it seems that there are a few folks out there that either they were in on the secret or they like it enough to continue to leave those breadcrumbs for us to find. And even that's with the line, not exactly. Nosa, not exactly. Hang on, I went too far. Maybe he's a Sith? Not exactly a Jedi? You know what I'm saying? But of course, after showing up saving the day, he's like, "Oh yeah. You could have killed yourself, Jar Jar." "Oh, I know. I almost did 5 times." Like, see, he's just playing an idiot. He's not really an idiot. You're not gonna belittle this, shall we? We win the money. Jar Jar Geico commercial. It's like Smurf Squanch. Oh, okay. It's like Squanch. All right, that makes sense. I get it. Thank you. That really helped me, to be honest. And here we have look at how dismissive he is. He's very quick and cagey, this one. "What are you doing here?" "What's a Yusa doing out here?" You see that? How very good he is at gaslighting. That's another Sith power. You didn't know that. Gaslighting. It's hidden in the lore, but it's there. Check it out. And of course, that's just the end of that. We don't have to sit through the entire comic book spot there. But, this takes us to the outside of the canon. All right, what were the real world happenings that lead us to believe that this stuff was George's idea? And for that, we're going to go back to the Noggin video. The fact Star Wars are all Jar Jar's fault, because these tweets are some 10 years old now. So rather than go find them ourselves, we're just going to credit these wonderful folks who did that hard work, and we're going to show you the tweets. But for those who don't know, Ahmad Best has talked about this on a few different occasions. Here we have an AMA post where I'll just read this out to you. As far as you know, did George Lucas ever consider making any changes to Jar Jar Binks in light of the general negative reaction towards him? And Ahmad answers, not to the character, but to the story arc, there were huge changes. To which Owen replies, that's really interesting. Could you elaborate on that by any chance? Ahmad says, I think George wanted to give the fans what they wanted. That meant more lightsabers and less Gungans. Wouldn't you know it? For as long as the internet has been around, internet fans are out here ruining shit. I stand guilty as charged. Look at what we could have had something. We didn't have the patience for it. God damn. We just wanted our lightsabers and star fights, and we weren't patient enough for the Gungans. To which Tamemeister hops in and says, actually, we wanted a good story, but whatever. God damn. Just brutal. Any of my fellow content creators out there, probably, you feel that one, right? See, like nobody gets away from a hate comment. Somebody's going to be in there just like, your shit sucks, bro. But whatever. Art Vandalay said, George Lucas doesn't need any input. He knows what we want. There was a time. I think he got close a lot of times. The prequels had a lot of problems with them. That's all I'll say. But over time, I've come to enjoy them. Lightsabers. Everyone's got a lightsaber. Everybody get a weapon. Everybody grab a weapon. Anthony says, Kev, I think it's safe to say that in the Sith religion, gaslighting is a recurring thing. Case in point, Palby gaslit the chosen one. Milk but blue. He has good instinct. Yeah, see, he knows what we want. We want blue milk, teal milk, lots of robed Jedi. Then they go into their version of the Dooku argument, which we've talked about a little bit on this stream and previously, that Dooku appeared to sort of come out of nowhere. Here's an obligatory shot of my dog, Count Dooku, with that baller-ass lightsaber hilt. The best in the game. And then here's this wonderful this wonderful edit here of what we could have had. Darth Jar Jar. taking on Yoda. And now we go back to Ahmad Best here. I got to find these tweets, but essentially, here we go. There's 2 tweets I want to show you. This one says, "Now do you get it? It is allegedly a spec script, a prototype for episode 2, which if you don't know, you may know a lot of times writers come up with a good story and have no fucking idea what to name it. So you'll have a working title, and most writers will definitely let you know that it's a working title because they're very self-conscious of the bad title in their mind. In their mind, it's just this hideous, ugly thing. So Blemish is like, it's a working title. Like you'll see it in parentheses, WT. All right, please don't judge me on this title. I swear the story is good. Please give me feedback. Anyway, Jar Jar's Great Adventure was the alleged prototype script name. Dog fake out, Milk Butt Blue. We got a dog fake out. Oh, did we miss one? Let me see. Where is this last? Oh wait, this is where they went into Snoke and all this stuff. But here we go. After the Reddit theory, I think it's Lumpawaru, I think was the name. After the Reddit theory came out, this tweet was posted by Ahmad Best that just says, "I will say this. It feels really good when the hidden meaning behind the work is seen, no matter how long it takes. Hashtag TPM," which I believe would stand for the Phantom Menace. I rest my case. He's been trying to tell us, and this is why I got so excited when Lego Star Wars, when I saw the Darth Jar Jar. I kind of knew it wasn't going to give us all of this, but it just felt like a tip of the cap for those who have invested in this theory and enjoy it. What does Anthony have to say here? Hey, Kev, when you think about it, we'll be getting to see Ahmad Best continue to portray Jar Jar's alter ego, Keller and Beck. Yes, who kicks major ass as a Jedi Vanguard, new Jedi title. Yes, it all worked out in that sense. Generally speaking, the prequels over time, with the addition of the Clone Wars animated series, all of the books and comics that have helped flesh it out, I think the prequels are decent. I think I've stated this before. The prequels for me are a story that I almost like. I enjoy the cliff notes of it more than I enjoy sitting through those 3 movies again. I love video essays about the prequels, like how democracy dies. There's one I know I've shared in our Discord before. It's like an hour and 20-minute video that talks about the fall of democracy in the Clone Wars in the prequel era, and I just love it. I think it's overall, generally speaking, like it's such a fun story to me that just was not told with the best pacing when it comes to the movies, and it left a lot to be desired. But with hindsight being 2020 and the sequels to compare it to, it just sort of got more appreciated over time. Not that it didn't have its flaws. It absolutely did. Harl says, Dooku was still worth looking at the screen, but I thought you meant an actual dog. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, what a swerve. I'll refrain from using that terminology, especially since I've admitted to all of you that I would like to have a dog again very soon in the studio. So I won't tease like that again. We'll say my guy going forward. Okay, so it's basically canon. That's what I'm thinking. Gene says the prequels are still bland. And that's fair. Like I said, without all the extra fixings and all the side dishes that have helped me to enjoy it, like I can't argue against you there. There's some of the acting. I mean, bland's a good word for it too. I think the word I used before was wooden or cardboard. Just bad. Insert meme dialogue here. It's sand. I hate sand. It's coarse and it gets everywhere. Like all of that stuff. All of that is very true. And there's a lot that I would love to change if I had a chance to go back and have them redo some of these prequels. But for my money, I would watch the prequels again before I'd watch the sequels again. But if we're being honest with each other, I'm probably not watching the prequels again ever, 1 through 3, unless it's to introduce a young family member to Star Wars or something. That's going to be about it. Like, there's no chance that I'm going to sit and watch the prequels for my own entertainment. Again, I would rather catch the Cliff Notes online. Watto carried, Harl says. Anthony has hope for a scene post Order 66 with Kelleran and Jar Jar in the same room having a discussion about rescuing more younglings, easy for me to say, pal, while on Naboo. I mean, I'll take that. Give me a little Easter egg like that. As long as these things can be done well without having it feel like it's being forced down your throat, to where it can be a nice little treat for Anthony or for myself, anybody who'd be like, oh, it's Jar Jar with Jar Jar. Look at that. That's great. Mod best on both sides. But if you're not that deep into it, it can just kind of go over your head. Doesn't have to be a huge deal. I'm all for that. Let's see it. I would appreciate it as well. So let me double check my notes here, gang. But I believe this is about it for the Jar Jar theory. I think we covered all of it. There's one thing that I missed here. There is allegedly a deleted scene from the second episode where Palpatine was going to have a conversation with Jar Jar. Now, for what it's worth, by the time they filmed the second movie, I'm pretty sure George had changed his mind. Best even says that in the AMA that we showed. He decided to give the fans what they want. So that deleted scene, that's why it's sort of an appendage here at the end, because I couldn't even include it in my weakest argument points early on, because I feel like this is another one that kind of contradicts itself. The idea is that this was the plan, and then they pivoted from the plan. So any scenes that were in the second movie are well after they have pitched that script, and Dooku's already in play. But for what it's worth, there was a scene where Palpatine would talk to Jar Jar, essentially thanking him for putting him in power, because that's what happened. So perhaps the design behind that would have been a way for George to tip the cap to himself and anybody who would have been in the know that was the original plan for Jar Jar to do that on purpose. But that's another coincidence that made the list. So at that point, we have cracked the code. That's what it is. There's the theory. My final question for all of you would be, if it had gone that route, what would Jar Jar's fate have been? I've kind of already laid out what I thought would have happened, but we'll go over it again right now for anybody who joined later in the show. I believe that with some changes, Jar Jar would have been what Dooku was. So I think if this had played out the way it was originally intended, Jar Jar would have been the number 2, right? He would have been the next apprentice, either after Maul, or, Maul could have just been another Asajj Ventress, another Savage Opress, who thought they were in line to be a Sith, but were really nothing more than some muscle that were trained with a lightsaber. And so perhaps Palpatine's apprentice was always Jar Jar. But either way, I think it still would have ended. He would have ended at Anakin's hands. I believe that at that point, we probably would have gotten the reveal. If he really was doing the parallel and the sort of like poetry that they rhyme, if that was really what George was doing, I think it's right there, right at the end of the second film. You get the big reveal. You probably get Jar Jar fighting Yoda. And then at the start, was it the start of the third one, is when we lose Jar Jar. That's when, Palpatine finally gets his hooks into Anakin and convinces him to kill his apprentice, his unsuspecting apprentice who, thought he was in on all the plans. And then you get that moment of realization right before it goes that your boss screwed you over. You've been replaced by some young upstart out of college who will do the job at several $1,000s less a year. It's a tale as old as time, folks. The corporate empire, that horrible CEO Palpatine. But that's where I would have it. In my head canon, how I believe it would have played out is he still would have needed to be gone by the end of episode 3, and probably pretty similar along the timeline as when we were done with Dooku. So that's my thoughts. If you have a better idea or a different idea for what they could have done, let me know. Now would be the time. So we are getting ready to wrap things up around here. Let me get another little close-up of old Jar Jar so we can pull the chat back on the screen one more time. Let's see what everybody has got to say. Okay, so what are we calling the ship, boys? Palpajar? Jar Jar Teen Palpa Binks. Are we shipping them? Too much course correction between the prequel-sequel trilogies. Gene, I will agree with you on that. In both of them, and now part of it... Prequels might be more course correction, where the sequels where there just wasn't a course at all, and they just had 3 different people directing those movies, not talking with each other about what the important themes would be, not knowing who the general villain, the pulling Palpatine out from thin air at the end of it, can't have been the original plan, I don't think. So I will agree with you. Course correction. In the prequel sense, I will always wonder what we could have had if George had just stuck to his guns and had just said, listen, everyone, the only reason you all love this IP so damn much is because you let me tell those first 3 stories. So let me tell this story, damn it. With all due respect, I'm George Lucas. You're not. Who do you think you are? I am. Right? You should have Pete Webered those guys and said, listen, we're doing Darth Jar Jar, and if you don't like it, grab some blue milk on the way out. You're out of here. But no, I agree. It was a little too much to have to fix. And it is unfortunate that neither the prequel nor the sequel really hold a candle to the main trilogy, in my opinion. Anthony says, Dweeb, we kind of got an alternate version of that on Robot Chicken when Jar Jar said, oh yes, you manipulated me. Okay, Palpy. Yes. Were they the originals on that? They broke it even before the theory, right? They were the first ones to plant that flag. It's probably Seth Green. That's what I'm going to give the credit to. He seems like the kind of guy who watched a lot of Star Wars in depth and would see something like that. Jar Jar Teen sounds like a sequel to Ovaltine. Rich chocolatey bombad Jar Jar Teen. Oh, that's wonderful. All right, folks. Well, once again, thank you all so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Leave some love for James on your way out. He will be back next week. I believe we are back to our regularly scheduled programming. Monday at 6 p.m. for a weekly Dweeb, and Wednesday at 9 p.m. Gonna have a lot for the next weekly Dweeb. I've there are so many trailers that have come out post Super Bowl. Part of me thinks we need to just have a preview review stream and just burn through a few of those babies all at once. But lots of nerdy news that has come across my desk. I feel like Alex Jones with all the printouts. So be on the lookout. Should be a great episode on Monday. And of course, have those notifications turned on. We're going to be continuing to get caught up on our videos and other stuff like that. So if you like what you saw today, please leave a thumbs up on the way out, or leave us a comment if you are a lurker, or if you're watching after the live stream. Love to hear from you as well. But I have taken up about enough of your time, gang, so we are going to go ahead and get on out of here. Thank you again for showing up. You guys are the best. You make this a lot easier, especially on a solo run. I would be lost without chat. So y'all are phenomenal. Work smarter, not harder, like Jar Jar Harl says, and I can't leave you on anything better than that. So we're going to use the intro for the outro. So we'll see you next time, gang.